Hey yo, what is up? 1.23.1 is gonna drop soon, which means the Japanese heavies are going to start off a new line for us to grind, starting with tier 5. So today I thought I'd take a look at all the all the Tech 3 tanks from the Japanese heavy line from tier 5 to tier 10. We'll go through each of them very quickly, and then you decide for yourself which one you want to grind, which one you want to skip, starting with the tier 5. Now normally I wouldn't really play any tier 5s. I would completely glean over it or completely skip it totally, but this one does 300 damage for 130 standard pen, and the premium shells, which I think is AP, 165 penetration for 300 alpha. However, this is a 13.23 second reload time gun, so the reload kind of sucks, but you know, that's what you get for 500 alpha. It's got that little mini turret going for it as well, and you know, it kind of reminds you of the other heavy tanks, the Japanese heavy tanks with the boobs. This is called the Mitsu 108. Again, I don't normally play tier 5 tanks, but I might give this one a try just because of that 300 alpha. The hull armor 70 frontally, turret armor 90 millimeters frontally. Again, the downside of this tank is that 13-second reload time. The dispersion is pretty bad as well, 0.44. You really want to be shooting your enemies in the face. You want to be right in front of them, and you don't want to be too far sniping away at medium or long distances. You want to be right there in the front, and maybe it's possible to achieve this because you have mobility of 35 kilometers an hour going forward and 12 in reverse, and all the tanks are going to be having the same speed, 35 going forward, 12 in reverse. It seems to be the standard for all Japanese tanks except for tier 9 and tier 10, where they can reverse 14 kilometers an hour instead of 12. So yeah, that's the Mitsui 108. Let's move on to the next tank, which is the Junu tier 6. This one has 150 stock penetration, and then the premium penetration is 208 on APCR. The damage on this tank, 230 alpha on tier 6, which is, for a heavy tank, it's not a big deal because there are a couple of medium tanks that do 230 average, 230 damage. I think T-3485 is 230 damage. No. T-3485 is 135 damage, isn't it? 230 damage anyway on this tank. The dispersion way better than that, 0.44 on the tier 5. This is 0.35, which is like kind of like the standard Russian kind of heavy tank accuracy, which is not too bad. But yeah, 230 damage for 221 aim, 2.21 seconds aim time, 0.35 dispersion. Remember, I think these guns have the cooldown mechanic starting from tier 8. I'm not sure if they have it in tier 6. I don't think they have it in tier 6. But yeah, the moving dispersion on this tank is 0.22, which makes it pretty bad. But 0.35 dispersion, stock dispersion, is not bad at all. Only when you are moving and shooting, it's going to be a bit of a problem. You want to be completely stopped before you fire your gun and do that 230 alpha damage on this tank. Let's move on to the next tank, which is the tier 7 called the Juto. Now this one looks a lot more like a proper looking tank. I think the tier 6 is like a Tiger tank copy. The Juto, maybe it's a Tiger 2 copy, I'm not too sure. but this tank has 195 penetration and APCR premium at 230 penetration with 320 alpha at tier 7. That's pretty good. 320 alpha at tier 7. The reload time kind of sucks though, 10.83 seconds. You know, when they give you a pretty okay gun, they'll nerf your reload a little bit. 10.83 seconds isn't very good. The aim time also 2.21 seconds, but the dispersion gets a little bit better, 0.34. The dispersion penalty on the move also improves a little bit, 0.20, which makes this a little bit more competitive and a little bit better in terms of moving accuracies. 0.20 is still not a big deal. I mean, it's not that great, but it is not unplayable or terrible. So tier 7 still pretty okay kind of tank. 85 millimeters frontal armor, hull armor, which is not a lot of armor, but remember you have a little bit of sloping on this tank. If you know how to make those angles work, it's not going to be too bad. The turret armor here is a lot better, 200 millimeters for a tier 7 turret armor. That's not too bad. I think it's workable. In many situations you will be able to work this tank. Let's move on to the tier 8. The tier 8 has 225 stock penetration. That's pretty good stock penetration for AP shells, and then the premium shells 252 penetration, which is going to be APCR as well. 360 alpha, you getting pretty good alpha 360, but the reload dismal 11.4 seconds. You probably get this down to about 10 seconds with rammer, cruise skills and whatnot. 2.21 seconds of aim time. This gun definitely does have a cooldown. The cooldown period is 15.50 seconds. So even if you reload 11.4 seconds, you're gonna have to wait another 5 seconds before you can make use of that insane 0.27 accuracy. When I say insane, I mean German accuracy. Basically 0.27 stock German tank will have 0.27 accuracy, but for a Japanese Type 57 you need it to cool down for 15.5 seconds before you can make use of that 0.27 accuracy. The moving dispersions, the penalty is 0.20, which is pretty bad, so you do need to come to a stationary halt before you pull your trigger and fire your gun to make use of that accuracy. The armor is 100 millimeters on the hull, but again, this is another sloped tank, something like that tier 7 Juto. The Type 57 also has a sloped armor, so it makes sense that it only has 100 millimeters of frontal armor, but you have a little bit of sloping there. The turret armor is incredible, 260 millimeters, plus there's a lot of angles, a lot of sloping, so you're gonna bounce a lot of shots. I think this tank will be pretty useful bouncing shots on the turret, and maybe if you're lucky, you angle your hull armor a little bit, you can bounce a little bit of your hull armor as well. Yeah, that's what I got to say about the tier 8 Type 57. The tier 9 Type 68, 250 stock penetration, 311 APCR premium penetration. It's pretty good. 2.1 seconds of aim time. However, there is a cooldown of 13.56 seconds, which means that the reload time of this tank is what again? 10 seconds, which means you have to wait another 3.56 seconds before you can pull the trigger and make use of that 0.27 accuracy. You probably get the reload time down to about 8 seconds with your crew skills and food. But the cooldown, I don't know if food and crew skills improve the cooldown delay. So I'm interested to know that. If it does, then it's uniform, then it's going to be balanced, you know, 35%. You can add 35% out of your reload for that cooldown time, but I don't know if food and consumables and crew skills improves your cooldown delay. But anyway, the moving dispersion on this tank is pretty good, 0.16 if you are on the move, if you are already reloaded, if you're already cooled down your gun, you're probably good to go to fire on the move with that 0.16 moving dispersion. That's pretty good. To be honest with you, I like that a lot. The hull armor, 110mm frontally. This has a lot of sloping as well, and it is a pretty sexy tank. I think the tier 9 and tier 10 is pretty sexy. It looks a bit like a heavy tank, like a STB heavy tank, so it's pretty cool. I like that look. It's going to be attractive. People are going to want to play it because the tank looks cool. And I don't know if it does it have some kind of hydraulic pneumatic suspension on the rear perhaps. I don't know if that applies to these tanks or not. I'm not too sure. It does have 12 degrees of gun depression. The tier 8, the tier 9 and the tier 10 have 12 degrees of gun depression. I don't know if that includes the hydro pneumatic suspension or not. I believe it probably does, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, so that is the tier 9. Did I miss anything? Maybe we can talk a little bit about, yeah, we talked about the armor already. Yeah, let's just leave it as it is. We'll move on to the tier 10, the last tank, the most sexiest tank out of all in the line. Obviously, it's an STB with buffed armor. Looks great. 260 alpha, 260 penetration, 320 with premium APCR, which means you're gonna get high velocity shells. 1380 meters per second on the APCR. It's like a laser. You click and it'll hit. 1.92 seconds aim time, very quick aim time. 8.8 seconds reload time. This is a very fast firing heavy tank with 400 alpha. However, the cooldown is 11.63 seconds. So you, even though you reload at 8 seconds, with crew skills, food, you might reload in 7 seconds, but you have to wait until you know, another 4 or 5 seconds before your gun cools down, and you can make use of that 0.27 accuracy. 12 degrees of gun depression. I think this has Japanese tanks, it probably has that hydro pneumatic suspension thing that gives you the extra gun depression to 12 degrees. That's going to be pretty interesting tank, and pretty sexy looking tank as well. 120mm of frontal hull armor and slope, 300mm of turret armor, and there's a lot of angles and slopes on the Type 71 as well. Will make it pretty formidable when it's hull down and when it's using its terrain, using its armor to bounce shells. This tank will be pretty interesting to play. Looking forward to actually playing these tanks. I hope they give us a chance to try it out on the test server. Maybe I'll do a quick rundown on all these tanks and we'll see what happens and how these tanks are going to stack up in 2024. But anyway, that was the roundup of all the 6 tanks that are going to be introduced into the German Tech 3 heavy line. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.